the program. First 5-10 minutes I can take on the broader aspects, and then
खन्ना सर थोड़ा
whatever
इनिशियल
whatever
रिमार्क दे दो, फिर उसके बाद सब लोग करते रहेंगे, फ्लो हो
कैसे
जाएगा फिर।
कैसे करें।
बस 1 मिनट सर, 1 मिनट स्टार्ट कर रहा हूँ।
ठीक है सर, खन्ना सर आप इनिशियल रिमार्क्स दे दीजिएगा,
अच्छी
देन
बात।
वी कैन प्रोसीड विद द मोर टेक्निकल एंड डिटेल्ड पार्ट ऑफ इट।
राइट।
ठीक है देन आई
अ,
स्टार्ट विद इंट्रोड्यूसिंग यू फर्स्ट, एंड देन वासुदेवा सर, एंड देन अनुज सर, एज एंड व्हेन वी प्रोसीड विद द वेबिनार।
लो जी स्टार्ट करें सर। थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस, वेलकम यू ऑल। सबसे पहले हमारे सीनियर मोस्ट मेंबर एम खन्ना जी, जिनके आशीर्वाद से हम हर बार बैंक ऑडिट का एक प्रोग्राम जरूर रखते हैं इनके साथ, ताकि इनका जो ऑडिट प्रोग्राम आता है हम उसको फॉलो करके आगे वो काम कर सकें। खन्ना जी ने बड़े टाइमली मेरे को शेयर कर दिया था ऑडिट प्रोग्राम, तो वो मैंने भेज भी दिया था वॉइस ऑफ सीए पे, तो वो आ गया है आपको। अगर फिर भी रहता है तो दोबारा भी आपको आ जाएगा वॉइस ऑफ सीए की मेल आईडी में। और उसमें कुंतल पी शाह जी की जो पुरानी थी सीबीएस कमांड्स की पीपीटी, वो भी आपको आ गई होगी और दोबारा भी आ जाएगी। तो उसके बाद संजय वासुदेवा जी, हमारे पास्ट सीसीएम, और एंड ही इज हैंडलिंग द मेजर ऑडिट असाइनमेंट्स ऑफ ऑल मेजर बैंक्स। देन अनुज ढींगरा जी हैज आल्सो ज्वाइंड, he is partner in the SC Vasudeva ji, with SC Vasudeva ji, and looking after the banks as well. संजय अग्रवाल जी, जिनके लिए इतना तामो झाम हमें करना पड़ता है, क्योंकि इस बार ये कैंडिडेट है हमारे सेंट्रल काउंसिल के, तो हमें ये काम पहले ही शुरू करना पड़ता है। हमने 3 साल पहले शुरू कर रखा है। तो हमारे भाभी सीसीएम आने वाले फिर से सीसीएम संजय अग्रवाल जी। और आज मैंने नेहा जी को, जैसे संजय जी ने बोला कि मेरी थोड़ी वो कोई दिक्कत थी, तो इस वजह से मैंने नेहा जी को बोला था कि आप इस प्रोग्राम को स्टार्ट करेंगे इन डिटेल। तो बाकी भी जितने भी हमारे पैनलिस्ट में जुड़े हुए हैं और अटेंडी भी बड़े अच्छे नंबर में हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं, मैं सबका वॉइस ऑफ सीए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एसोसिएशन की तरफ से स्वागत करता हूं। हम सब जानते हैं कि इस बार बैंक ऑडिट कोविड से ही हमें निराश कर रहे हैं। कोविड में हमने इतने एफर्ट करके, मैंने पूरी लड़ाई लड़ी थी 1-1.5 महीना स्पेसिफिकली सिंगल हैंडेडली कि जी आप कोविड में ऑडिट क्यों सिर्फ सीएसए से करवाना चाहते हो। अल्टीमेटली हमारी इंस्टीट्यूट भी जागी। 9 अप्रैल 2020 को उन्होंने फर्स्ट मीटिंग की सीएसए के साथ। उसके बाद ये प्रोसेस शुरू हुआ और आरबीआई ने इंटरवीन करके फिर उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं जी हम ऑडिट करवाएंगे। लेकिन उस साल 90% वाला सर्कुलर आई थिंक 80% पे, देन अल्टीमेटली 70 एंड 60 पे। तो ये अभी इन्होंने ऐसे थोड़ा चेंज कर दिया 4 साल में। लेकिन इवन दो आई थिंक दिस ईयर द मेंबर्स आर मोर हैप्पी बिकॉज many banks have selected their auditor by software, and at least I can assure you that in Jalandhar many members have received emails directly through the software and are happy. Either may be category 1 2 3 4 in each category, may it be PNB, may it be other banks as well. तो इस बार मेरे को लग रहा है कि ऑडिट का जो हमारा सपना है कि भी खत्म होगा, सुन भी रहे हैं, लेकिन इस बार का एटलीस्ट वो वेल मेंटेन्ड है, चाहे परसेंटेज जो भी करवा रहे हो। तो इसी कारण हमने पहले ही अनाउंस किया था कि हम बैंक ऑडिट के ऊपर 2-3 प्रोग्राम रखेंगे। 3 तो नहीं रख पा रहे, लेकिन 2 जरूर रख दिए। एक पहले हमने कुंतल पी शाह जी के साथ प्रोग्राम किया था, अमरजीत चोपड़ा जी हमारे पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट भी आए थे उसमें। तो वो था मेनली सीबीएसई कमांड पे, सीबीएस कमांड के ऊपर कि आपने कंप्यूटराइज्ड ऑडिट कैसे करना है। आज का जो हमारा प्रोग्राम है, संजय वासुदेवा जी अपना प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करेंगे एडवांसेस ऑफ ऑडिट्स लफार अनुज ढींगरा जी के साथ। और इन्हीं के जो मतलब एससी वासुदेवा जी के जो हमारे सीनियर पार्टनर खन्ना जी, वो हमें हमेशा ऑडिट प्रोग्राम भेजते हैं। वो ऑडिट प्रोग्राम के माध्यम से आपको ये बताएंगे कि ऑडिट करना कैसे है, प्रोग्राम कैसे बनाना है, क्या मांगना है, क्या रखना है, जो आपको आने वाले टाइम में चाहे वो डीसी हो चाहे नफरा हो उसमें आपको बचाएगा। डॉक्यूमेंटेशन क्या चीजें आपने संभाल के रखनी है। तो मैं सबका स्वागत करता हूं, ज्यादा टाइम ना वेस्ट करते हुए मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा संजय जी, आप संजय अग्रवाल जी, आप अभी ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स देना चाहोगे? एम खन्ना जी, देन नेहा विल।
नेहा को करने दो कोऑर्डिनेट।
तो नेहा, आई विल रिक्वेस्ट नेहा टू काइंडली प्रोसीड फर्दर एंड स्टार्ट द प्रोसीडिंग by introduction of each speaker.
Absolutely, sir. Welcome, everyone. I would quickly like to introduce what is Voice of CA. Voice of CA is an NGO founded in 2009 by CA Sanjay Kumar Agarwal, who's a Central Council member at present, along with a few like-minded professionals at the time. It was one of the first platforms to realize the power of internet and began sending professional updates to members via emails. Since then, it has now grown into a big team which send professional updates via WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, YouTube, and whatnot. We now also have a job vacancy Facebook group, which helps many members to find tax, finance, and other professional and fill those vacancies in their office. We have been actively doing webinars, seminars on burning topics, and offer networking opportunities to our members. We also conduct holistic living programs for our members. Just last month, we organized the third edition of Wellness Retreat to Yogram Haridwar. In fact, our team was very active in conducting such webinars during COVID. Time and again, we have also shared various free ebooks and discounts on physical copies. We are always open to suggestions for things we can do to make your life easier. You can always write to us at voiceofca@gmail.com. We are very fortunate to have amongst us today the learned auditing team of SCV and Company LLP, earlier known as SC Vasudeva and Company, CMM MM Khanna sir, CA Vasudeva sir, CA Anu Dhingra sir. I would quickly like to introduce Khanna sir so that we can begin the program. He is a fellow member of ICI and Institute of Internal Auditors, Florida, US. He has done his BCom honors from DU. He now has more than, I think, 47 years and more experience in the profession. He joined KC Khanna and Company as a partner in 65 and then joined SCV as a consultant. He has handled and supervised large audits in public sectors and private sectors, besides tax and consultancy assignments. He was elected as CCM from 1982 to 85 and then again 1995 to 2001. He was also elected to an IRC from 1973 to 76 and served as chairman in 1975-76. I hope, sir, I am able to remind you of all the good times. He was also appointed and served several committees, including Bank Audit Committee, Accounting and Auditing Standards and Boards Committee, Half-Yearly Review of Bank Accounts and Rating Modules Committee, various other committees of RBI, Committee on Farm Accounting of BIS, and many more. He presently holds directorship in 3 companies in professional capacity and was nominated by RBI as director of J&K Bank and was on board of trustees of CanBank Mutual Fund till 2000. He also has conducted system studies and profit maximization studies with clients and has contributed various papers, conferences, seminars, and have attended these professional programs and of course, his famous annual bank audit programs. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
So Neha, just if you permit me, just one correction for Khanna sir. You
Sir, I've lost your voice.
वॉइस चला गई. म्यूट हो गए सर आप.
हाँ जी
म्यूट
सर.
हो गए सर.
just saying Mr. Khanna is a godfather to our firm, and you mentioned consultant, so he's larger than a consultant, and he continues to be the managing partner of KC Khanna and Company. Okay, thank you. That's
Noted, sir. Noted.
actually, yeah.
Absolutely delighted to have you all here, sir.
Thank you, Neha. In fact, I must, I feel very honored, and it's a pleasure for me to be amongst people who are much younger in age. I might tell you that the firm to which I belong started on the 1st of April, 1942. So today we have our anniversary on an April Fool's Day. I might put it in a lighter vein. But thank you for inviting an old fogey. I'm pretty old. I think I'm the oldest member here. And many of the members may not, they might have been students when I was already qualified way back in 1965, which is now like history and very ancient. So I'll try and give you some kind of a background before Sanjay takes up the meaty part of the whole matter. the way I look at bank audits is, I did my first bank audit way back in 1959. That is, I don't know how many of us were born at that time. How many you? I was born, of course. And it was an experience by itself. And in those times, we had to learn a lot by ourselves. And one of the things I learned from my very first audit was that banks' activities, whatever be the activity, they used to maintain a register. So if you were in doubt, you would ask for a register of that particular area and they would produce it. Now I've seen banking grow from that time, from manually maintained accounts to semi-computerization to full automation in today's world. Of course, I won't call it full automation because there are still manual interventions. That will happen in any system. No matter which is the best system that you adopted, there has to be manual intervention for items which are discretionary by nature or where management has to take decisions well beyond the norms which are set in. Now, so far as the audits these days are concerned, considering the time constraints, the severe time constraints, I think all of us should attempt this audit exercise as a kind of a project. We need not sacrifice quality if we have covered voluminous transactions within lesser time, within the time allotted to us. And so that we are able to prepare a meaningful and effective report, I think we need to go through all the procedures, not necessarily at branches that we concentrate only on advances. There are other areas of concern which people seem to forget. So the first thing that needs to be done is to understand the scope of the assignment itself, because many of the banks have stopped tax audits and they do not seek validation of some of the areas. So the terms and conditions of appointment and the scope of work must be properly understood so that they can plan and execute their work simultaneously for all the areas and be able to submit a report well within time. And the report, as I said, has to be very meaningful. Now, what is the most important part of it is to understand the very special features of a bank branch audit. One of the special features, which distinguishes these audits from the others is that there is no scope for passing adjustment entries, which arise out of our working post 31st of March, because the balance sheet figures and the P&L figures are frozen each day, and they are frozen equally for 31st March after the year end, month end, and the year end transactions are properly recorded. So that means the accounts of the bank have to be complete and they are frozen, and they can be certified as such subject to your report. You see, a lot of banks insist that why don't you sign the report? If you sign the balance sheet and the profit and loss account, if they are in agreement with the books of accounts, this will be subject to your report, which will follow, and you are given time, a reasonable time of 8 to 10 days or 12 days within which to finish it, provided you attempt the audit very, very systematically. Let us not forget that in the core banking scenario, the data of the bank is stored on a central server, and the accounts of the branch per se do not exist. People don't understand that it's not that the books are maintained at the branch. All the transactions come to the central server and they arise from 3 different sources. The vouchers, the transactions, and the economic activity can be initiated at the branch, okay? And it can terminate at the branch, and the entries are passed to the branch with all the evidence available for the entire transaction. For example, if you go to your bank branch, deposit 10,000 rupees, they will give you a pay, you put in a pay slip, they'll give you an acknowledgement, and that itself is a voucher. The scenario with extensive computerization is this, that you are able to pass entries very, very quickly, even if they arise pertaining to the branch, but at other branches of the bank. So those transactions come through the central server, and these are often, seen by the auditors, and they're told that they don't have an explanation for it because these are system-driven transactions. There are several system-driven transactions which come from the central server to the branch, including for interest, inter-branch interest, for transactions which are routed through the central server from other branches. But the bank branch also receives entries from extraneous sources. You have dividends coming in, interest warrants being given to the bank, because it's one customer per bank, and it is the customer of the bank and not of the branch in reality. Those transactions also come through the central server, and they get recorded. What they've done is, in fact, in nutshell, is that the inter-branch transaction burden is taken over for a bulk of these transactions by the centralized processing system. This is something that needs to be understood. So the auditors, when they are confronted with a sentence like this, that this is a system-driven transaction, the auditor cannot verify the originals. He does not have access to the original vouchers, evidence, or record. This would be available at the other office of the bank, the branch of the bank, or the originating entry will have come to the, through the central processing cells or to the central server, as I always will put it. So the issue is, at the branch, what does the auditor do? An auditing procedure requires you to verify the facts and evidence. But the fact is that an account has been created for a customer. The originating entry may have come from another branch where there are instructions that from that particular account, the customer of this branch is created some money. Say instruction is given that please, from my account, you transfer to so and so in the other branch, so much money. Or you go to, you're in Chennai and you deposit 10,000 rupees in your account. So the original pay slip and voucher will be with that branch. The entry only comes here for which the originating evidence is not available. Here the issue, an auditing issue that has been raised over the years is, what does the auditor do? Does he accept responsibility for such a transaction where the originating evidence is not there? We have tried to draft out a note which appears in the audit program in the reporting section. A suggestion has been given that one can reasonably disclaim one's responsibility for transactions for which originating evidence has not been shown. So that one part, I think, is very, very clear. Let me just very broadly touch on this. This is the program that has been in printed form. It runs into over 250 pages. Now you will be surprised by the weight of the program. People will say, we have such little time. How is it that we go through all this? The write-up is there. Mr. Sanjay Vasudeva and I have got together. They put their brains together to give an audit program, which is like a book by itself. It's a bulky program, but let us not get scared. I don't want to scare you. You should view the two ingredients of this program. Number one is the ready-made material which saves the time of the auditors. And what is ready-made material? Normally, what will happen if you don't have this program, or don't have any other program, you're appointed as an auditor. So you would first have to start thinking of what laws you need to know. What are the regulations you need to be familiar with? What are the accounting norms and banking practices in vogue? What are the bank's instructions for obtaining uniformity in approach to various issues of the same type across the board, across the entire set of the branches? So if you start studying all this, you will take more than your 10 days only for study. So to be able to plan the audit, you need to understand many of the things. So what we have done is we have, to ensure that the reports come on time, try to save the time of the auditors for all the preliminary work which they're supposed to do. So there are ready-made letters of acceptance. Just copy paste it on your letterhead and send it. Okay. But when you read it, when you read those letters, you'll understand what you are writing in terms of the requirements of the institute and in compliance with the norms expected of you. Norms and manner also, perhaps. The second thing is the letter of engagement. This is also required as per the auditing standard. So you issue a letter of engagement. Question is, what do we write? So if the auditor starts drafting that letter, it will waste a lot of time. So there's a ready-made letter of engagement. These are basic letters. You can add whatever you want. If you come upon something special for a branch out of your own experience of past dealings with that branch or otherwise. It's not that these are rigid, these are slightly flexible, but the meaty part of it is already contained therein. So you have the acceptance letter, the engagement letter, and then most importantly, what is the information you need from the branch? You're not going to sit at the branch and sit in your own office and start compiling all the questions that are relevant for the conduct of the audit, and so that you are able to draw up an audit plan. Even that letter is ready. This letter itself is half the program, half the audit program. It tells you what to look for, what you will get, and what you will ultimately report. So there are two letters. There is one letter of requisition prior to 31st March and one on 31st March. Of course, that is over yesterday. Yesterday was a holiday, so today it could be sent out to people who started the audit for the year-end procedures for verification of cash and other similar items. So there are ready-made letters which can be used. Okay. So it takes away a bulk of the papers that you have seen. Now, the auditor wants certain information, and that information needs to be in a kind of a standardized format. So we drafted out those formats in which you will receive the information. And if you're doing more than one branch, you will get the information in like manner so that you are able to compile your report in a better way. Gives you all the information that you basically need. It also brings out certain analytical procedures that you need to look into. Now, the audit program is in 34 pages, but covers every single head of account. The entire program may not be required. Many of the items may not be there at the branch, and therefore you can complete the audit program by writing not applicable to the other items, so that you have covered from end to end every aspect of the bank audit, branch audit. Now, the peculiarity, not I won't call it peculiar, the good feature of the audit program is it gives you headwise what you have to do. And on the inverse side of the program, there are notes and instructions on legal requirements and an understanding of the fundamentals. So if you get stuck somewhere, you don't have to revert back to your office and look into it. Then you come to the reporting part. Now the reports are also ready-made reports. Just copy paste, include the items that you've seen and observed at the branch, and your reports are ready. This is for the main report as well as for the long-term audit report, for which instructions are already given. Now, what ultimately do you report? That the balance sheet shows a true and fair view of the state of affairs, and the balance of the profit or loss of the branch depicts the true picture of the loss or the profit. There is a slight difference in the reporting between the institute and what is recommended in the program, which I must explain. The institute right up to 2009 was following the Banking Regulation Act insofar as the reporting on the profits or loss is concerned, and they said that the profit and loss account shows a true balance of profit or loss as the case may be. This is the requirement of the Act. But thereafter, somehow in the guidance note, I don't know how it crept in, that they're applying the concept of true and fair even to the profit or loss in the profit and loss account. So this is what needs to be understood, and one needs to go into the requirement of reporting as per the law more than anything else. So this is what I thought I should bring out to you. Now, how does this audit program help you to access information? The balance of it is all reference material. Okay, the reference material is various laws, several laws that have been quoted, the RBI circulars, okay, the accounting standards, the auditing standards. All these are incorporated in this booklet, but not in full form. They are all hyperlinked. There's a reference given to each item, each law that's applicable, and this is hyperlinked so that there's no difficulty. Now, we've dealt with the advances a little more in detail because it's a very critical part of the whole game, because the responsibility for adequacy of provision lies with the auditor and not with the manager. That is why the criticality. So I think, and this I think will be dealt with little more in detail by Mr. Vasudeva when he looks into it. The important part is, one of the important parts of the whole exercise is the risk matrix that needs to be drawn, because this is a risk-based audit, and one has to place reliance on what he sees as the systems of control, etc. in the bank. The auditor does not have access to the central server. He doesn't have any access to what is happening and what is churned out by the head office for the branch. Now, he needs to be worried about the internal controls of the bank as applicable to the branch. He must remember that errors and omissions will arise on account of three factors: the absence of a system, absence of a control system. Secondly, the inadequacy in a laid down system. And thirdly, a breach of a well laid down system. All these three things will result in an error or omission, and even may lead to a fraud. So basically, I will wind up by saying that you need to be familiar with the branch, its nature of operations, the size of operations, the components of the balance sheet and profit and loss account, and refer to what are the adverse features of the branch in the latest available reports. It's all contained in a letter of requisition, because reference to that will indicate to you as to what is the normal nature of adverse features and what is the level of compliance. You can have adverse features, but what is the level of compliance? And one thing which I would like to emphasize on is that do not ignore two things: the branch managers handing over report whenever there is a change of incumbent. The incoming manager will say such and such things are bad, this advance is bad, there's a problem found. The outgoing manager will say, no, everything is okay. So the handing over charge report indicates all such adverse features which you are looking for, because no manager is going to assume responsibility for something which has been wrongly done in the past. And therefore, that report, to my mind, is very helpful. We've been using it over the years. The second thing is, we assume that all the fields and parameters are incorporated in the centralized system, which churns out the information and gives it to the branches. Now, if all the parameters are built in and modified and kept updated, the system will also draw up what is called a daily exception report. The daily exception report is actually in two parts: one, on the breach of systems, and secondly, on the transactions which are not in line with the norms as expected. So one should go into the exception reports, whether they have been generated, whether each report has been disposed of in the manner it ought to have been dealt with. And these are not kept pending by the branch management. On the report, my only warning would be that banks accept on their computers now a standardized report, which may or may not be in line with that of the institute. I think one should take care to ensure that the report is in line with the requirements of the guidelines of the institute, except and to the extent that I've mentioned about the net profits or losses. So these are my, initial remarks. And if there's any question that arises in the course of this, I might be able to address, because I'm sure, knowing Mr. Sanjay Vasudeva and Anuj, they will not leave anything out, for anybody to comment on any further. But again, I'll just reiterate only one thing again, that it is not merely advances. There are other areas of concern which must be looked into. You cannot ignore deposits, you cannot ignore borrowings, you cannot ignore some of the things like investments and all don't appear, because there are only two sources of income for the bank. One is the investments, which is the centralized function on which branch auditors really have to do nothing. And generally, that centralized function is one of the main auditors. The second one is the advances on which the banks are this thing. This is decentralized at the operating level, which is the branches. And the criticality is with all this is to be within the coverage of the branch audit. So I'm not touching on the IRAC norms. I'm not touching on the other part of the full game. But I think we leave it to the presentation by the two eminent speakers, Sanjay Vasudeva, for whom I have a tremendous amount of respect, because he's got such a good grasp of things, and not only bank audits, otherwise also. We often consult him on certain matters where we have doubts in our own mind. So I think you can, we can take it over to Mr. Sanjay Vasudeva to go ahead with his part of the exercise. And just to mention that all the laws that have been quoted, all the RBI guidelines which have been quoted are all hyperlinked. I'm only reiterating so that you don't have to carry a bunch of those. They would be available perhaps in the branch, but it is easy for you because everybody is equipped with a computer normally. So with hyperlink, you see, and the reference material is available on the spot to each person, no matter whether he is working from his own town or city, or he's in another town or city. The idea is to give them this convenience so that there is no difficulty. So broadly, as I said, I will summarize that this program contains it has two ingredients, two parts. One, which is ready-made material to be churned out immediately. And the other part is the management representation letter also is drafted. If the manager says, I cannot answer all these questions, that draft is also given in this. So one has to go through that and take a view on various issues. So over to you, Sanjay. I have, I think, taken more than my time to deal with the preliminaries.
Sir, we have a few hand raises from the participants.
Just a minute, Neha.
last में
Participant,
ले
I
लेना, पहले
want to
संजय जी का करा
inform.
लो.
Hello. Participant has just wanted to say that we are more than 250 now, and the whole family is here. Neha, my daughter, my son-in-law Vishal Tapaji, my son Rishabh Agarwal. I just want to inform Khanna sir that the whole team is working for you. And sir, one of your ex article Ravi Bansalji has said in the chat box that he want to touch your feet virtually also. We have tried to make him panelist and allow him to do that honors, but somehow he is either technically is not in a position to say it. May I request Neha, if you could unmute him so that he can speak something about Khanna sir. Then we'll move further. Sanjay sir, we are just because he is writing in the chat box, so I thought it fit that let us
I'm
be
Sanjay,
one of
I'm
the
too
person to
scared.
make
He
it.
knows too much about me.
Yeah.
I said, I'm
So
very
Ravi
scared. He
Bansalji,
Hello. Hello.
yes, he is there, sir.
हेलो
जी रवि बंसल जी आप आपको सुन पा रहे हैं हम.
नमस्कार खन्ना सर.
नमस्कार जी, नमस्कार.
सर हमने तो आपके ही लेक्चर सुन करके ये बैंक ऑडिट स्टार्ट किए थे और आज स्टेज पे पहुंच गए हैं. 10 मेरे ख्याल में 16-17 साल हो गए जब से आपका इंस्टीट्यूट के 5th फ्लोर पे वो लेक्चर सुनते थे और आपकी ब्लेसिंग है सर जो आज मतलब यहाँ पर हम स्टैंड करते हैं. आपको देख करके बहुत भगवान से प्रार्थना है सर आप इसी तरह हमारे साथ बने रहें और आने वाले सालों तक और इस तरह से हमें आशीर्वाद देते रहें. यही मैं आपसे कामना करता हूं सर. थैंक यू संजय जी गिविंग मी दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi ji. I
Thank you.
know you were my neighbor in Wazirpur when I used to sit there.
अभी भी संजय भाई आपके दिल में हूँ. नेबर तो अभी भी हूँ.
Thank you. And CA Neha, can you take up some queries which are relevant to Khanna ji in the chat
Yes.
box? Then we can go to Sanjay sir.
Yes, there are no queries in the chat box. There is only one concern. पार्टिसिपेंट्स हम लोग आपको ऑडिट प्रोग्राम आज की रजिस्टर्ड ईमेल आईडीज पे सबको ईमेल कर देंगे. इनफैक्ट चैट बॉक्स में 2 बार हमने शेयर किया है ऑडिट प्रोग्राम का जिप फाइल. आप उसको 3 डॉट्स पे क्लिक करके डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं जो खन्ना सर ने ऑडिट प्रोग्राम बनाया आपके लिए उसके लिए. और
Neha,
ईमेल भी हम
Neha,
कर
you
देंगे
may,
प्लीज.
sorry, Neha, you may also please, I'm confirming to everybody, all the participants, in case they get stuck with any issue in the audit while they're auditing, you can give them my email address and my phone number, my mobile number, which which would be available to them in case they have any issue or problem or they need any clarification. I will be only too happy to provide it. I've been doing normally the month of April of mine goes into this. So there will be, I will not take time to respond, and I will be able to guide them on what the program says, or if it is not contained therein, at least we'll provide clarification as required. So that is my offer to all the participants, and let them have the audit program. If they don't understand any part, let them revert to me. Okay.
Very obliged, sir. Very obliged. We will share your email ID as well as your phone number along with the audit program on the registered email IDs of all the participants by evening or tomorrow. We have a few hand raises, sir. Harsh, sir, do you have any query? I'm allowing you to talk. Harsh
क्वेरी
Singhania,
लास्ट में
sir.
ले लेना. पहले संजय वासुदेव का करा लो शुरू. क्वेरीज
अच्छा,
लास्ट
ठीक.
में ले लेंगे ना. हाँ
अच्छा, ठीक है सर. ठीक है. ठीक है सर. Quickly, I will introduce Vasudeva sir. Vasudeva sir is currently the managing partner of Messrs. SCV and Company LLP. He has an experience of more than 30 years in the accounting profession in areas ranging from stat audit, internal audit, Companies Act, and FEMA. He has over the years worked with clients across different sectors, including manufacturing, services, banking, and finance. He has wide exposure to auditing and accounting standards, including Ind AS. He was elected CCM for 16 to 19. He is currently a member of Corporate Law Committee of PhD and CII National Committee on Financial Reporting. He is currently a governing body member of the Foundation for Audit Quality. He has served as a member of National Executive Committee of FICCI and was appointed as a nominee of FICCI to Valuation Standards Board for 23-24. Over the years, he has served various professional and regulatory bodies, including ICAI, IFAC, SAFA, IIA, Florida, and our institute as well. He has spoken on various platforms over the years on topics such as audit accounting, corporate laws, and Ind AS. We are very delighted to have you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Neha. Namaskar, everyone. Very good afternoon, and thank you to the entire team of VOCA, Sanjay Garwalji, his family, and Ashwini Jindalji, and all the other office bearers of VOCA for giving us this opportunity. And my great pleasure and thanks to Mr. Khanna for joining the webinar. In fact, Ravi Bansal ji had mentioned, but similar sentiment I'd like to share that whatever banking little bit I know has been because of his guidance and my learning from him over the years. And he's always been my guru, not only in banking, audit, but also on various other matters. So he's a friend, philosopher, guide, and a great, great human being. So it's always a pleasure to share the dais and to be, part of the webinar. So thank you very much, Khanna sir, for everything. And with me is Anuj, my colleague from the firm, and who's worked extensively on the presentation and who's been working with me on extensively on the ground level for bank audits, and has helped compile this presentation, and also the audit program which Khanna sir and we prepare on a annual basis. So without taking much time, I will go ahead with my deliberation. And so what we've done is that based on the direction which Khanna sir has given in terms of giving an overview, I'll just take that forward from from both from an expectation, some changes perspective. I will briefly touch upon the IRAC norms, the changes which have come in place, and then look at some key issues. And then we can take Khanna sir's inputs also. And then Anuj will take us through a bit more on audit reporting, LFAR and IFC. And we'll take up some queries towards the end. So the presentation, we will have a more focused approach from the presentation, and we'll share you the full presentation thereafter. So can we move to the next slide? So just take a few minutes here to set the tone, and just taking a cue from what Khanna sir said. In the recent conference which the NFRA had organized, and in subsequent also discussion which we've had, it's always important to understand what the regulator is really thinking and speaking, because once we look at a bank branch audit, we need to look at it in a more comprehensive basis, because what we are as branch auditors doing is to be part of a system which is the entire governance process, and whatever area one is looking at the branch level adds up to a lot as far as the whole picture about the bank is concerned. So just to share with you what were the thoughts of the chairman of the NFRA in that recent discussion. He said that in the entire governance process, and this was talking about the governance framework. So in the governance process, there are five, let's say, key players or lines of defense. The first is the management, then is those charged with governance, which is audit committee and the board. Then you have the auditors, you have the investor forums, and you have the regulators. And I think it's important to understand that when we are looking at the entire governance or the financial reporting ecosystem, the role of the auditor is more and more important. Obviously, there needs to be an understanding amongst the society and the regulators that before the auditor there are two other lines of defense, which is the management and the those charged with governance. But from an auditor perspective at the branch level, so what is the expectation from a branch auditor, from let's say the management or those charged with governance. It's important to understand. So from the management perspective, I think it's not just to go ahead and carry out the audit, but to come up with, because as branch auditors, you are the eyes and ears of the management also. So are there things which you can see which the management is not aware of? I think that's really because you are at the ground level and you are an independent entity, you are an independent person. So that's the broad expectation from obviously the board and the audit committee, is that the entire governance process, the entire compliance is done, and there are no there are no non-compliances, there are no stress assets which don't come to light, or the systems of the bank are actually operating at the branch level in the manner in which they should, and they should not have a surprise tomorrow. Uh, then looking at from a regulator's perspective is also that, are the auditors really looking at their engagement from not only from a tick box approach, but are they exercising the level of professional skepticism? Are they really going behind the circulars, regulations, and seeing that, is there a way in which these regulations are being there's a non-compliance, or there is being a manner in which, roundabout way in which there is the entity or the bank is doing something, and where you can come up with non-compliances or aspects whereby controls have been misused, authorities have been misused, these circulars have been misinterpreted, the intent of the regulation has not been complied with. I think those are really the aspects which the regulators are looking at. So it's not enough to perhaps say that we carried out or we did not come to know anything. We need to have a very, very robust audit process. And that's the reason why this audit program has been shared and webinars or seminars like this are being held. So one needs to enhance the knowledge about not only banking, but about the various controls, the IT processes at the branch level, the manner in which the delegation of authority has happened, which are the industries, what's the nature of the branch. I'll just talk about that further. So just to close out on this issue, I think it's important to really not look at ourselves only as branch auditors, but really a very, very strong pillar in this entire governance process, and also appreciate that there's a huge expectation from us. The next issue which I just wanted to touch upon, and Sanjay ji is here, and maybe towards the end he can clarify this issue. So whether the branch auditors from a regulatory perspective will be covered under NFRA. I know when I was in the council, this matter was discussed and debated, and as far as I recall, the conclusion was that branch auditors would not be covered. But the recent case of Diwan Housing Finance, whereby regulatory action has been taken against an NBFC's branch auditors also, and because all the banks are listed entities, so I think this aspect needs to be looked at, and the necessary guidance to the auditors needs to be provided. It's not that auditors are not aware or they are not complying with these standards on auditing. The only thing is that NFRA is very focused on compliance with auditing standards right down to the T. So the rigor at which they are expecting compliance is definitely something which could be new for a lot of branch auditors. So thereby, Sanjay ji, my humble request would be at maybe at this forum, or maybe sometime this should be clarified. I've tried to build in some of the expectations which NFR I've already mentioned, and the RBI I will cover during the presentation as we go along. I just also wanted to mention one particular case where we had uh, we had a reference from CBI. So this was an audit which was done, and I think it's important for participants to understand that what is it that really regulators are thinking, and be prepared for that. Uh, and so this was an audit which was done about 7 years back, and the this account was being investigated, and the auditor in case received a communication from CBI 7 years later on, that they needed to present themselves before the investigating agency. And when the reason was asked, the reason was that the auditor had classified the account as an NPA. So this account was under investigation for a fraud, and the investigating agency wanted the auditor to share the papers in terms of what led to them classifying the account as a non-performing asset. Now, we may argue today that the auditor was only doing the job, and that's what the auditor did present. But the fact was that there was a more, I would say, a more deep dive required from the investigating agency in terms of what the auditor had done. And they wanted to rule out that whether the auditor was aware of any wrongdoing in terms of the account. So it was not enough to really classify the account as a non-performing asset. But if there was a fraudulent intent, then the expectation was that the auditor should have brought that to the light of the management as well as the regulators. So I think this is also a very, very pertinent point. Then the another interesting aspect which recently, and obviously this is at a very, very macro level in terms of an entity, where the auditor had qualified the audit report. But the NFRA took the view that qualification was not enough because modification at different levels, and they said that either it should have been an adverse report or a disclaimer of an opinion. So again, as we can see, the expectations of the regulators are I won't say increasing, but I think they have these expectations based on how they are viewing circumstances unfolding, they are viewing non-compliances happening, and they are placing their expectation on the auditors. So my intent is not to create any atmosphere of fear or anything. I just want to put things in the right perspective so that we can be aware of what is the expectation and how we need to really go about that. So in all seriousness, I think if we are doing our work diligently, with a little bit more care and a little more depth and skepticism in terms of not approaching it as a exercise which is left to our teams, and proper supervision and all is done, I think we can achieve that. Again, the standard on auditing compliance, we would need to maintain sufficient appropriate audit documentation, and it's not. I think today's time is not just to have the bare, just not to demonstrate that you've done, but to demonstrate effectively. So all the stages of audit, whether it's risk identification, whether it's sampling, whether it's your planning, whether it's your report, how your procedures, how your evidence collection, how you closed off issues, what was there, what had done, everything has to tie up. So this is also very, very important. Then, as Khanna sir mentioned on the the way audit is today done, and he mentioned about 1957 when he had done his audit first time, and I will confess that I was not born at that time, Kanasa. So yes, banking has traversed a long distance, and we are at a stage where you know um, most of the banking today is automated. You have more and more products. Obviously, that has led to more challenges with more and more fintech companies coming in. But anyway, to focus here, it's important for auditors, and especially first-time branch auditors, to understand that a lot of banking today, especially on the NP identification, has been automated. So there's a lot of investment has been done uh, in terms of ensuring that there is NP classification is automated, and there are different softwares which bank use. One is at the overall macro level, and the other is at a granular level, whereby accounts are classified. However, there are still so you need to understand that the system really takes care. There is a system check which happens. The central statutory auditors also carry out a detailed IT review that the logic in the system, whatever are the controls, everything is in place. But what as branch auditors we need to do is to really look at based on our tests that whether those are in compliance or not to the norms which the IREC norms. So if you do come across any issues whereby the automation per se has been done, but still there is a non-compliance, I think it's a real grave cause for concern because it could be a systemic issue. So not only would you mention that in your, I mean, there could be an MOC for that, but it also will find a mention in the LFAR. Hopefully that should not be the case, but if you do come across, please do not hesitate to mention it as a systemic issue. The second part to this is what are those aspects which are not automated? So for instance, one of the aspects which I mentioned here, in banks, and this is something which, RBI, despite having come out with clear instructions about full automation, there are banks have still not, automated, certain NP related aspects. One is on the unrealized interest. Now you're all aware that as per the IREC norms, not only is the classification done, but unrealized interest has to be reversed. Now in some banks, the software or the CBS does not incorporate this feature, and if so, this is something which you need to be aware of. And in the bank in which you are carrying out the audit, you need to ensure that if this has not been done by the system, then you will have to carry out a manual entry and the MOC will have to be passed. The other is with respect to restructure advances, with respect to certain concessions given, there could be one-time settlements. Now, all these aspects are not, automated. Then there are various levels of authority, or let me reword that. So there is an authority matrix which is given for entries which are not automated. The auditors need to be aware of that because there is a maker checker concept there for anything which is not automated, and the auditors need to ensure that that has been complied to the T. Obviously, bank audit is a time bound exercise. We need to ensure that it is completed in the time which is given. However, a word of caution here that please do not be pressurized by bank managements or by either the head office or the circle offices or the regional offices for completion. But at the same time, please do not delay inadequately the completion of the audit exercise. I think all of you are aware that how much time, depending on the branch size, you require. And if there is a proper planning done based on and some of the things I will also talk about, which will help in streamlining and ensuring that we can do the audit in a time-bound process. please do complete everything in a time-bound manner. It's important at this stage also to mention that to be familiar with the bank's closing instructions, there are instructions which the central statutory auditors issue, where there are now in most banks, it's very pointed in terms of their experience, regulators' experience. I know in banks where we've been auditing, we've been communicating very explicitly and trying to help the branch auditors to really be aware of how to look at various aspects where there could be issues in interpretation or where there could be a difficulty in understanding aspects. Then there's obviously calendar of returns. All of you are aware. Those of who are not, that there are when you look at the your appointment letters, when you look at um, the returns which you need to sign, you will understand that this will provide the basis for your understanding about the audit and how the information is being thrown up, not only at the branch level, but at the the governing office level or the head office and the other controlling office level. So it's important to understand, and for most aspects in banking would be covered in these returns. The another case in point which I want to mention upfront is that there are a lot of products which the bank has for education loans, for agriculture, and etc., where there are concessional rates given. So these are towards meeting obligations of society, meeting certain sectoral requirements. So for instance, let's just look at education loan. Now, education loan has been given to help students who want to study, who are who may not have the resources to take up a course, or their family may not have the resources. So the banks step forward in funding their education so that they can go ahead and have a better career ahead. And this has been really helpful for a number of students to achieve their career goals. However, as happens in most cases, sometimes the best intentions or the best intent are not used in the manner in which they should, and there is more of misuse. So we need to be aware that are the loans for which there is a concessional rate of interest given, or these are priority sector, are they actually being used for that? Now, there have been many cases where we've also come across where loans have been taken. The students have left the course, so they have taken up some alternative vocation, whether in India or overseas. They have not taken further, so the loans have to be. So there are various stages at which disbursement takes place. So there are disbursements, let's say one or two disbursements have taken place. The next disbursements have not taken place, and the loans have not been repaid. Now, technically, if you may, so there is a time period in which the loan can be repaid. But however, whether it is meeting the intent or not is something which the auditors need to really examine. They need to inquire from the bank. So if you find that there are cases whereby education loans have been given, the dispersal has not happened in line with the required as per the sanction letters. We need to really inquire that whether the student concerned is pursuing the course or not, whether the he or she has dropped out, and what is the repayment schedule going forward. So just wanted to highlight these issues to give a sense of how we need to. So there will be other aspects which also we'll talk about. So if we can maybe move to the next slide. So this was just a overview. Then quickly in terms of preparation, as we have always been talking, and I just wanted to highlight on this slide. It's very important um, to be updated about what is the guidance available as far as bank audits are concerned. So this really covers that. The audit program covers that. The guidance note covers that. The point which I wanted to make here was that the team which is carrying out the audit at the branch needs to be equipped, needs to be fairly trained, and I mean, one can say that okay, these are junior staff, and we don't have adequate resources to train them. But I think there needs to be a session in which the partner concerned or the senior concerned needs to really talk to them, explain to them about what really is there in the audit. So not only will that help them to carry out the audit, so various terminologies, various the way operations are carried out at the branch, what kind of a branch it is it a deposit taking branch, is it advances, is it retail? So a high level and also a ground level in terms of what really is required. This will help you to comply not only with the auditing standards as far as planning and team meetings is concerned, but also in helping in an effective discharge of the audit. And the other thing which is also important is that how are issues closed? How are issues closed? And finally, how does the engagement partner really take a view? I think just going back to what regulators are looking at today is you can have a team which assists you to do the audit, but as a partner who is signing, what was the level of oversight? What was the reliance they placed on the team? How were issues concluded? What were the questions asked? And um, because finally the ownership of the opinion has to be taken by the partner concerned. And I know in a number of disciplinary proceedings, the issue comes up that this was done by my staff and I was not aware. I think that was never an argument which could hold water, and today I think it would absolutely not. So this is just one thing which I wanted to mention very, very. Please be conscious of that. Then from a planning perspective, I think it's just important to understand, as I mentioned, the kind of branch, looking at the numbers, previous year and the current year. What's the level of NPAs? Has it gone up, gone down? Interest figures, does it relate to, the advances in place, both deposit and interest? Unrealized interest, does it add up to, what is the level of the non-performing assets? Have we access to the previous year reports? Have you looked at the concurrent audit? Any RBI inspection done? Any audits done? And the previous LFAR. Also ensuring that there is an expectation that these are really concurrent audits are being closed off in time. If there are stock audits which are being done, has the reports been submitted, and have we really looked at that? I think that's really important. And concurrent audit issues are being taken up, they're being closed or not. So I think that's very important. Then on the decentralized, I think I talked about the IT function and what is really happening at the branch level. Again, a lot of automation has happened, but essentially the sanction letters, the documentation, the visit to the borrower, the stock, everything, stock statements, everything is monitored at the branches. So it's important to understand that all that interaction is still there at the branches. So one cannot say that that is all handled at the head office or the controlling office level. Khanna sir talked about daily exception reports. I think it's very important. It's fundamental, in fact, today, because with the level of automation, it helps um, to focus on the right areas, to focus on the right accounts. And my suggestion and our team's suggestion is that one of the thought process or one of the ways to look at is that, okay, look at the exception reports in December and see which are the potential NPAs, and then see if they are being classified as non-performing asset towards the year end. But maybe you can go a step further and review from in your sample size the entire, the account, the exception reports for those accounts for the full year. And if you see accounts continuously coming in and out of the potential NPA, then you have a case for seeing that these are really, really accounts which are weak accounts, and maybe go a little deep and to see that, okay, how is it that these accounts have been, if they've not been classified as non-performing asset, how is it actually a recovery which is happening? Is there something else? So it gives you a meat to really look at further. Then I think Anuj will talk more about the LFR and memorandum of changes and other certificates and attestation. The Khanna sir also talked about the audit program, and I think we've mentioned this there. Audit engagement letters. So there is a letter of requirement which is a pre-engagement activity where you can request the information which is required. Audit plan based on your auditing standards. What's your audit strategy? All this needs to be documented. Also, the samples which you are going to take. And I'm just going to talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. And management representation letter. So not just a standard representation, but if there are aspects where the branch is representing on aspect where evidence is not available, I think that needs to be taken into account. So if we can just go to the next slide. Yeah, so here is a broad, I would say, picture about what one needs to look at when you are selecting advances. I'm sure you can go through this in more detail, but it's important. Two, three things are important. So basically, what we are saying is that so there is a threshold which RBI has prescribed as far as 10 crores or 10% of branch advance portfolio, whichever less is concerned. Obviously, that has to be looked at, but you can also, and this is there in the audit program also, that you can also split different, either the level of advances. So you can take larger advances and smaller advances. You can also take maybe sectoral and look at 2, 3 samples from there, depending on the size of the branch. And it's important and today regulators are asking that what is the sample you're taking? So it's important to also understand that we are moving, not only are entities moving to a level of automation, but even auditors are moving to a higher level of automation where they're using more and more data analytics to look at the entire population. So what the regulators are looking at is fine. This is the sample you took. This is the sample size you took. Please let us know. And did you then, coming out of that sample size, was there a sense that you had that there was a further detailed examination which was required? So I think that's the point I wanted to make. So please do maintain record of the sample size which you've taken. The sample has to be representative. So if it's a deposit branch and you are taking more of advances, I think that's it's going to be difficult. Or if a branch has more of retail accounts, or if the branch is more of housing loans, and if we not looked at those aspects or those samples in more detail, then I think you will have a big challenge in terms of justifying that you really did a decent coverage to the advances. So that is what I wanted to mention as far as the advances is concerned. So with this, coming back to the aspect about coverage in the time concerned, if we have a proper understanding, we briefed our team, we've got the audit program and documentation place, we've inquired from the branch, the bank branch in terms of what information required. We also carrying out an analysis. Then I'm sure that based on the level of the branch complexity and all, we can cover. And we always are we are asking the right pointed questions, and we are not I think the other aspect on professional skepticism is please just do not rely on the other thing, which just to supplement that is that your team might just tell you that we were told by the branch management, उन्होंने ऐसा कर दिया, उन्होंने तो कहा कि जी रिकवरी आ गई, उन्होंने कहा कि उन्होंने विजिट किया था ब्रांच, उन्होंने कहा स्टॉक स्टेटमेंट आ गई लेकिन लगी नहीं. Now these are aspects where tomorrow if you conclude without actually going really into the depth and seeing that actually is that evidence there, अगर stock statement आ गई तो is it there, has it been put on the CBS, if it is not, have we examined, is your team examined that or not. I think those are aspects which will very difficult to defend tomorrow if there are challenges. And so I'll just take a pause here and then just move to the next section very quickly. This just 2 minutes I'll spend on that, and then yes, Anuj. Yeah, so this is a broad structure of the advances, in terms of SM, what really constitutes an advance, what is standard, regular. Now, even in the standard, you have the SMA category. Yes, next. And this is the, the latest IRX circulars, April 1, 2023, where the RBI has consolidated or all their earlier regulations. So they had made, so there's no major change as far as there's no change as far as the current IREC norms are concerned with regard to the last year. And I did cover in the last year more detail. So quickly, if we will just run through, so there are no changes as far as your definitions are concerned on out of order. There is now the 90-day period is not from the balance sheet date, but can be at any point of the year. As far as the moratorium is concerned, on principal, interest has to again 90 days, not only from the end of the quarter, but from 90 days, that has to be seen. The SMA classification similarly continues as it is. There is now a day-end process which is required. So 90 days has to include the day-end process also. So that is also a case in point which one needs to do. And one very important thing, just coming back to the earlier slide, can we just, yeah. So this is very important that now the requirement from RBI is that the exact due dates of repayment are mentioned clearly in the agreement. And at the branch level, when we're looking at the sanction letter, when we're looking, it's a very important for the auditors to look at this and see that this has been correctly fed into the system. Because we found sometimes discrepancies, sometimes when you want to, because as Khanna sir said, and he's repeatedly said that whatever goes into the system, one needs to see that the quality of input will determine the quality of output. Now, if the quality of input is not correct, then the quality of output is not going to be okay. So it's now once the date of repayment, there's a date, if there is a moratorium, everything has to be correctly mentioned. So please, a sanction letter is a governing letter. Agreements are very important, integral part one needs to look at. So I just want to mention that quickly. We can move to the next one. Then upgradation, again, very important. You cannot have part recoveries for upgradation, especially if you have different loans. One is NPA, the other is not. In all cases, if you want to upgrade, then you need to receive the entire amount before the upgradation can be done. So we can move to the next one. So there were some examples, and we've talked about, so this is very important as far as the automation is concerned. I've talked about that. Then specifically on upgradation, DCCO and restructuring is important, that whatever the guidelines with risk or the requirements to come out of restructuring, whether it was a certain period of time, whether it was to bring in equity, whether it was to bring down a certain level of related party transactions, whether it was to sell off certain assets, to whatever, those have been complied with, non-achievement of DCO. So again, these specific conditions that complied with, then only the account can be upgraded to a performing asset. Credit card account, again, it's become very specific, 90 days. and within 3 days, if it is not, there are penal, charges to be levied, and the payment date is the reference date from which the 90-day period is now calculated. Yes. So not much change as far as income recognition is concerned. It remains the same as far as we have to take an utilization basis, exclusion for government guaranteed. It's applicable for government guaranteed accounts, but exclusion for the NSCs and KVP life insurance policies if you have adequate margin. This is not applicable for gold loans and for any other asset-backed loans. So whether for classification or for income recognition, the exemption. Appropriation of recovery needs to be on a consistent basis. Ideally, should be unrealized, charges, unrealized interest, and interest and then principal. But again, it has to be consistent, and please ensure that it is followed, year on year basis. Um, I think it's also, I'll just touch upon some aspects here. So we talked about the appropriate internal system, and that is where the branch auditor's role is very important to validate that the system is working. One thing which is also important is that the security value has been fed in correctly. Obviously, security is not a consideration to determine whether an account is NP or not, but the security valuation, because when the account turns NPA at that time, there's a lot of issue which happens in terms of the correct security valuation. So please ensure that that is accurately fed in. So there are accounts. So this is the non-financial deficiency. So there may be or financial deficiency, and then we can also look at other deficiencies. So there could be accounts where stock statements are not submitted in time, or the review renewal has not been done. Now, if this continues beyond 90 days, so if you have a drawing power calculation done with a stock statement which is more than 90 days old, then the account is deemed to be irregular. And 90 days of that irregularity continuing, the account will need to be classified as a non-performing asset, despite the fact that the account is operating within limit, or there are no overdrawings. So this needs to be borne in mind. And this also, you need to be aware that the stock statements which are received need to be either there's a register, or most banks have automated this in terms of recording this in the CBS. And then obviously if there's a delay, then there would be a penal interest which we charge. The other connected aspect here is with regard to review and renewal, that if that is not done, so a full review has to be done. If that is pending, 90 days has passed, again, the account is deemed irregular, despite the account being regular on a financial terms, or operating terms, and that irregularity continues for more than 90 days, it will be classified as a non-performing asset. Upgradation of loan accounts, I think I covered this, and accounts regularized near about the balance sheet date is again very important. Now, this is a matter where a lot of subjectivity can creep in, and auditors' experience and understanding about the case in point is very, very useful and important, because there are a number of cases where there is no operation in the account for the full year, and then you have credits which are coming in. Now, what the auditor needs to examine here is, are these really genuine credits? These are not credits which are from, let's say, a related party transaction, or even if it's an unrelated party, it's a one-off transaction, and whether these are not reversed immediately thereafter. So that's very, very important to consider. And only if there are genuine sources can the accounts be taken to be performing. But there is again a very, very important line which has been mentioned in the circular, that if there is an inherent weakness in the account, then the account would be, could be deemed to be, irregular, and the account can be classified as an NPA. So here is a subjectivity definitely involved, and the auditors need to exercise their discretion here. And also, please do not classify accounts or as performing asset if they are non-performing asset as at the balance sheet date and subsequent recoveries have been received, because this does not meet the test of the accounting standard 4 as far as post balance sheet events are concerned. So that's very important to also bear in mind. um, we can go to the next slide. I think this on the and where there is a erosion in value of security or there's a fraud which is committed, again the circular is very clear that these don't move in the stages. It doesn't move from standard to substandard to doubtful to loss immediately. If there's a 50% erosion in security, it moves to doubtful immediately. And if there's a fraud, then it has to move to a loss category. Now, so what has happened is over the years, the banks have also increased their monitoring system as far as frauds are concerned. There is aspect about early warning signals. There is an RBS, circular which covers various categories in terms of operations, documentation, on as far as the borrowers are concerned. Please do have a look at that. There's an institute guidance also available. And if there are, in fact, now you have to mention in the, LFAR also. So if there are early warning signals and whether that has been considered. So please be mindful of that. And please bear that in mind. Then coming to agricultural advances, 2-3 points which I wanted to mention here was one, as far as the KCC accounts are concerned. Now the intent is that they have to be, so they, because you have accounts where there will be a rollover which is there, but the requirement is that there has to be a recovery which happens during. It's not just interest, but the account has to be squared off at least once in a year. Now there has been a lot of discussion, debate around this. Various forums, auditors have asked, bankers have been giving their own interpretations. And so what, as auditors, we need to ensure is that actually if the branch is saying that cash has come in, then actually cash has come in and it has gone out the next day, that's fine. But how do you justify that? Is there a entry in the cash book? Is it something which can be supported? Is it something which is unusually high? Normally that's not something which will support that kind of transaction in the bank. Those are questions which need to be asked. Some banks have put in a system whereby they have reduced the amount of or the number of branches which actually collect cash. So it has to be done, directly, either through another payment system or digitally. But wherever cash is received, and if it cannot be demonstrated that actually cash was received, you can raise a flag, you can inquire, and if you are not satisfied, please do not accept that as a recovery for the agricultural advance. The second aspect is on the agriculture as well as allied agricultural activities. Now, um, uh, the important part here is that in the classification of allied agricultural activity, whether it's for tools or implements, whether it's tractor, whether it is H&T advances, where these are transportation, these are support activities to the agriculture. These are not purely farming activities, not pure agriculture, but these come within the broad definition of agriculture, could be priority sector, but they do not get the benefit of the period of crop loan, for short term and the long term, which is, 2 crop seasons or 1 crop season. They will form the evaluation for the non-performing asset will be on the normal 90-day period. That's very, very important. Various banks follow, and experientially they're following thumb rules to say that, okay, if the agricultural advance continues, some have a view that if continue, there's no change in the balance for 3 years, they should necessarily be classified as NPA. There are some, banks which have taken a view that, okay, if the balance is, let's say, more than 135% of the original balance, the account has to be classified as NPA because the interest to that extent in the last 3 years would not have been serviced. So these are aspects which, one needs to, consider. We can move to so I'm just skipping some slides to just come back to. On the I think I have just I'll just take another 5 minutes to talk about 2, 3 specific aspects, and then Anuj can take up his deliberation. This presentation I will share with you. So on the cash credit, accounts, I know there's always been a challenge, not only, because as you know, term loans are, I won't say easier, but they are much more structured in terms of receiving of interest and as far as installment is concerned. But as far as the drawing power calculation is concerned, there are various aspects which go in. It's the stock level, it's the debtors level, it's the creditors level, and everything keeps on. So one needs to be mindful of that. I've already talked about the stock statement, the non-financial parameters, but the quality of stock statement also to understand that what is the nature of industry that we are seeing. Is it, and the stock levels, do they justify, that is the raw material really required for that long? Are there 2 months, 3 months which they are showing? How does it relate to the sanction letter? I think as just going back to the sanction letter, what is it that was mentioned there when the assessment was done? And today, if we are getting stock levels where, let's say the raw material or the WIP or finished goods are, elongated, then it shows that, there is an overfunding which is happening, and it does not justify the operating cycle of the entity concerned. So that is something which one needs to look at. Definitely on the samples which you have taken, please do compare the balance sheet, the last audited balance sheet, and with that, the stock and the creditors level. And if there's a major variation there, in fact, we have, a template available where you can calculate based on your GST, turnover, your GST numbers. You can calculate the turnover, you can work out the drawing power, and then if there's a major variation, the auditor concerned can take a view that the drawing power needs to be recomputed, or is it a more systemic issue, and then reported in the LFR. So these are aspects. Then there are, aspects about creditors being taken, not being taken, rightly being considered or not, whether advances need to be taken as part of, for drawing power considered. So all this is there in your sanction letter. Please look at that. Whether the related party debtors need to be taken at a certain level. What is the margin to be taken there? 25%, 40%, if there's more. So basically, banks and branches will do everything possible to see that the drawing power is calculated to ensure that the account does not turn a non-performing asset. So I think that's something which auditors, I know over the years, have been looking at it, but especially for the first-time auditors, you need to be aware of this. Please do understand this nature, and if there are challenges there, you are free to rework the drawing power and to look at and to report that in the manner in which can give the correct picture. Then I think this reversal of unrealized interest at cover, yes, one-time settlement. In case of one-time settlement, if the account is not fully, you're not recovered, then it is, the requirement is to keep it under an asset under collection account, which is a liability, and you don't square off the account. That's and you can ask for the policy of the bank in that case. It's not that we can reduce, the advances. So their advances will be there, and the liability will be maintained. So whether that is being done or not, that needs to be looked at. I have looked at, we've discussed about URI, the subsequent recoveries also, multiple extension of. So in case of accounts where these are project loans, And there is now a requirement for a DCCO, which is the date of commencement of commercial operation, which has to be mentioned. There have been cases where this is extended, and this is again a non-financial or this is a non-operational aspect where account can turn non-performing asset, because if the account does not achieve the date of commencement of commercial operation, then the account will be downgraded as a non-performing asset. But there is a relaxation available for certain criteria, which could be, because of promoters, because of regulatory aspects. What one needs to see is that repeated extensions do not exceed the full time period given in the RBI circular. I think that's very, very important. Can go to the next slide, and maybe I can take a couple of. So in this, I think it's also important, as I mentioned initially, that at the branch level, if there are the ASM reports, stock audit reports, concurrent audit, all these need to be closed. These need to be reviewed. If they are not closed in time, one needs to examine, is there a underlying reason? Is there an underlying risk also there? You need to inquire, and if there are comments there, one needs to consider those also. Early warning signals I've also considered. The latest clinic report for the samples which you've looked at, one needs to review, because this will give you a snapshot, a view about how the account has moved, because the banks have to report on a weekly basis of default, and a monthly basis they are reporting to clinic on the accounts which their operations. And if the account is moving, there are defaults which are being captured there, and it is not being taken in the system, or the branch is not taking that, then you have an external piece of evidence to corroborate the classification which is being done. End use of funds, again, very important, especially in term loan. Please ensure that in case of term loan, the disbursement is made to the vendor concerned, the party concerned. It is not routed through the cash credit account, so that we can ensure that the end use of fund, and where there is no end use of funds which is specified, I think in public sector banks there would be very rare cases where end use of funds is not specified. I know of private sector banks where there could be a challenge, but if there is not, then please do mention in the LFR. Again, on the transfer to the asset recovery branch, if that's very important, whether it's an account so you could be having an NPA which is being transferred to an asset recovery branch, because a lot of now banks have specialized branches for asset recovery. Please ensure that both the fund-based, non-fund-based, the balances have been transferred. And if you are auditing an asset recovery branch, please ensure that the date of NPA which was there is synchronized with the date of NPA which is appearing in the asset recovery branch, because a lot of times the system integration does not happen properly. The aging then becomes a problem at the asset recovery branch, and we found that the accounts which were doubtful in a branch appear in a different category as far as the asset recovery branch is concerned. We also aware of round tripping of funds. I've talked about the genuine credits, especially on related party transactions. So this is another regulatory concern that again, if you look at the sanction letter, you will see there what are the related parties. When you look at the balance sheet, the related parties, to what extent the transactions are permitted. If you get an indication that money is being channeled, or the money from here is going to another related party, which is not for an asset creation or utilization of the entity where money has been taken, please do take it up very seriously. If it means even sending out not only in the LFR but even reporting to your the central statutory auditors, and ensuring that this account, whatever is the problem, has been addressed properly. I've already talked about the loan for agriculture support activities. Another thing which I just want to touch upon, other than advances part, was the unauthorized operation as far as the internal office account. These are parking ledgers. A lot of times these are used or misused and abused for routing transactions to ensure that um, the account in a certain category continues as a performing asset. Especially this is those cases of CCOD accounts where the balance is below the drawing power or sanction limit. In those cases, we found that banks have this contra entry concept, where there are transactions which are posted to ensure that the transactions to bypass the system and the account cannot be classified as a non-performing asset. So these were some of the thoughts I was able to look at. I will share this presentation, and I hope that with these inputs, with whatever I mentioned, you will be able to carry out a more effective and a time-bound audit. And if you still have any queries at the end of this session, maybe after Anuj has covered, we can take quickly queries for 5-7 minutes, or my email ID or my number I will share, and you'll please most than welcome to cover connect with me, Khanna sir, or Anuj if you have any queries. So thank you very much, and I'll pass it on to Neha and then to Anuj to take this forward. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. So if everybody allows, can we take a few questions like before going forward? Because there are 1 or 2 questions in the question box and one in the chat box as well.
वासुदेवा सर से रिलेटेड है तो ले लो.
I think so, because one of the questions in chat box कह रहे हैं, please repeat the point of post recovery.
Okay, so okay, very interesting. Okay, post recovery का issue ये है कि अगर account is a non-performing asset as on the balance sheet date और 31st मार्च तक आपके पास रिकवरी नहीं आई है, लेकिन बात चाहे वो आपका कैश क्रेडिट अकाउंट है, उसके अंदर रिकवरी बाद में आ रही है, अकाउंट ओवरड्रॉन है, बाद में उसकी रिकवरी आ रही है और बैंक ही रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है कि ये अकाउंट बिकॉज it has been now cleared, the dues have come in, or if it's a term loan also, and the installment was interest or the installment was required to be received before 31st March, that should not be considered to upgrade the account, is the point which I wanted to make, because that does not change the position on 31st of March. It is a post balance sheet event. It's not an adjusting event. I mean, it is a post balance sheet event, but within that, it's not an adjusting event.
Moving on. So there's one question in Q&A saying, during the audit, it was observed that there are various loan accounts wherein no impact was given on EMI or loan expiry period on account of the change in interest rate, where there was an increase actually. Instead, the CBS accumulated the impact and kept with last installment. Can this be said to be restructuring? That is, borrower was given benefit of payment of loan due at later date.
Excellent question. I think I wanted to cover, but I could not cover that. So there are two options available. One, you can increase the EMI figure, or you can extend it. Now, if it has been done, you've increased the tenure, but the fact is that there is a stress in the account and the recovery is not coming, then and it has been done only for a particular borrower. If it has been done only for a particular borrower, then it will be restructuring. It will tantamount to restructuring. But if the system per se has done it for the entire set of borrowers, then it will be difficult to say that it is restructuring, because this is for a particular restructuring is with a particular borrower. And if you look at the circular on the restructuring, so that's the view which I have. But yes, very, very good question. So if it has been done and there is a stress in the account, definitely it can be taken to be restructuring, and the account will need to be downgraded.
Okay. Next, sir, Deepak ji is asking how to address issue of audit trail for bank branch audit report.
So audit trail per se, yeah, audit trail per se is not applicable for, to my understanding, for the public sector branch. But for private sector, definitely it will be applicable. For public sector, because there are certain aspects from the Companies Act which are not covered. But in any case, what you need to see is that, and in the CBS there is, there are features with regard to various system logs. There is now a requirement for the IFC certification also at the various branch level. So there is a maker checker there. You can, if there is a requirement for reporting on, or if the auditors or central statutory auditors or the bank requires you to report on audit trail, I am not aware of any such case. Then you will have to look at the edit logs at the branch level and see that these have been enabled, and they have not been disabled, and they have been kept in operation throughout the year. But let me get back to you on this, because I am not aware of this for a public sector branch per se, because all these aspects, whether it's a private sector, when in case of private sector banks, already these discussions have taken place, the reviews have taken place, ITGC reviews have been done, systems have been reviewed, even in the NBFCs and everywhere, this has been done. So public sector banks, um, maybe I'll just have to get back. But the only way to do it is to have access to that information and to test that at the branch level.
May I just add for a bit of clarification? See, public sector banks are not companies except for a very limited, restricted purpose. Okay. The other thing is, in the case of the public sector banks, there is an audit trail system because they cannot modify, edit, or do anything to the entries. They have to pass entries to take into account if they notice something. Uh, so the system is centralized. The branch auditor would not know. So the branch auditor cannot comment on the centralized system, in case that is the question. We are now dealing with branch audits. At the branch audit, there is no question of audit trail. The centralized system takes care of all these matters. So this question would not be very relevant to be answered at the branch level.
Deepak ji is also requesting for shedding some light on maintenance of working papers. I think we have already covered this, sir, right, sir?
Yeah, the audit program which is given will help you maintain audit working papers. If you have any specific issues on that, and I've also mentioned it, so as far as your planning and audit sampling and conclusion is concerned, I think those are the more important aspects. So so broadly in an audit process, you have understanding of the business which is there in the audit program. You need to document that. You need to understand what is the nature of the branch. You need to see what is your team, what is going to be your strategy, who is going to be doing what, to what extent are you going to be, taking a sample, what samples you're going to take, what evidence, is gathered, how much time you will take, what is the, experience of your team, how the engagement will be supervised, how that is documented, how the evidence is collected, and what conclusions are drawn. So I think all that has been covered, and that is basically what is there to document.
Sir, Arunji is.
May I again
Sorry,
interrupt
sir.
with your permission? You see, the starting point is all your letters of engagement and requisitions from the branch, the audit program. And when you execute it, what are the papers you received in connection with the execution to satisfy yourself? And secondly, how are you going to defend yourself in respect of the report that you qualify or give? If you give a report, you need to prove from your paperwork as to what made you do that. So all those are working papers, and they need to be retained in evidence of the work actually executed by you.
Sir, moving on, Arunji is asking, how do we judge that the inherent weakness account should be done NPA or RFA? what points to consider, and kindly provide RBI circular for restructuring.
The
And in
second
how many
part-
days restructuring should be completed? Multiple aspects.
No, I
Now-
think no. So let me take that question. Let me take the second part first. So RBI circular on this. So the RBI master circular has a section on restructuring. Restructuring earlier used to come with an asset classification benefit, and which meant that if you had certain conditions which you had met, then restructuring would not automatically downgrade an asset, right? Now those asset classification benefits are done away with. During COVID time also you had these asset classification benefits which are not there anymore. So basically, there are conditions which are given for restructuring. It's there in the circular. So as I mentioned, that if there is a stress in the account, and those again, the restructuring can be done, which means you can elongate repayment cycle, you can reduce the interest rate, you can do various other aspects. The only thing is that that account then needs to be downgraded. So there is only one, I think, exception to that in case of agriculture loans where there are natural calamities and there is an SBLC report, and there the account will not no longer be, those will not need to be downgraded. So that's as far as restructuring is concerned, it forms now part of the master
तुमने कितनी
circular
छुट्टियां
itself.
लगाई हैं?
The other aspect on can you just repeat the first aspect which was there?
Sure. Sure, sir. How do we judge what points to
Yeah,
consider
yeah.
for the inherent weakness?
So inherent weakness को देखने के लिए आपको अकाउंट का ये देखना पड़ेगा that one, what is the nature of operations in that account, what overall, how is the company doing and how is the entity doing, how is it servicing the the debt, whether it's interest or whether if it's a term loan, is it coming out of the normal operations, is it always a repayment is being done at the last stage, and are they having to borrow money to repay that, are they selling their assets to repay that, are there inflated in inventory positions which we are seeing, and on that basis is there an ad hoc, let's say there is repeated ad hoc limits which are given, is there is there or are there diversion of funds which are happening, are they not able to service interest or repayments on the due date repeatedly? So these are, I mean, I can go on. There are a number of tests. The I think the litmus test here would be कि आपको लगता है कि जो अकाउंट जो भी सामने सिचुएशन दिख रही है, this is only managed. This is only managed in terms of ensuring that the account continues or is continues as a non-performing asset. It can vary from size. So for instance, if, as I mentioned, that there is the working capital cycle. So working capital cycle is not in order, that you are showing, you had originally said that the amount which you required was 30 days for raw material, your WIP was 60 days. Now that has suddenly gone up. Your turnover is, let's say, 100 crores, your loan is 2x figure of that. Or so, which means that, I mean, it should not be, I'm just taking an extended argument just for impact. So these are some of the indications, or the money is not. So if I just group this into 2-3 aspects. One, operations of the company are not in order, operations of the account are not in order. Third, the intent of the party is not good, that they have not been either creating assets for which the money was taken, they have not been utilizing it for the manner, for, let's say, the working capital or cash credit facilities for which it was taken, and they are not the intent is not to repay the money or to divert the money. So if these are the 3 tests which come and they are not met, then definitely the account is is has an inherent weakness and needs to be downgraded, definitely. I mean, there could be others which one can talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we'll take up the rest of the questions after Anuj sir's deliberation. We'll quickly cover the things that he has prepared. Uh, I'll just quickly introduce him. He is also a part of SCV, and his relationship is very old. He joined the firm as a trainee and then as a CA, and now is a partner. He holds an MBA degree as well as he's a chartered accountant as well as a BCom, and has acquired proficiency in auditing and accounting standard and has completed. Sorry, just 1 second.
Good.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. And he has completed his general management program for accounting professional from IIM Kolkata. And he has a lot of experience in statutory audits over uh, various industries, and has experience in handling projects funded by multilateral agencies such as USAID, ADB, and World Bank. He is part of the assurance practice right now and is handling quality control management within the firm. We welcome you, sir. Uh, we are so sorry there is some delay with respect to this. Over to you.
So good evening, everyone. First of all, my sincere gratitude to Khanna sir as well as Sanjay sir for giving me
Anuj, can you be little louder or near the speaker?
Is it better now, sir?
Yes. Thank you.
So once again, good evening to everyone. And first of all, my gratitude to Khanna sir as well as Sanjay sir for giving me an opportunity to speak on this matter. Thanks to the organizers of this session also. So my topic covers for the bank branch audit report. So likewise, every audit report, this is also one amongst that statutory audit report only. It has to be compliant with all the reporting requirements given in standards on auditing. That is SA 700 and series. That is SA 700 and series. Again, the other standards of 700 series relating to qualification, other matter, emphasis of matter, plays a very key role in the bank branch audit report also. The format has been given in the ICAI guidance note for bank audit, and it takes care of all the requirements of those standards within that 700 series. So these standards are now continuing for the last more than 5 years. Now, talking about an additional requirement which was raised by RBI to the central statutory auditors, the letter came in March 2020, wherein some 5 additional requirements were brought into the bank report also. So it was the letter was written to the central auditors, and same way it was downstream to the bank branch auditors also. All the clauses were very much similar to the Companies Act section 143 requirement also. And one of those section was to report on the internal financial controls in the public sector bank. So initially this requirement came for 2021 and it was later deferred by another year. It came for March 20, but later it was deferred by 1 year to March 21. So per se, as on today also, there is a letter to SCA only. There are no RBI circulars for that. So this letter is holding true as on date also. And for the internal financial control at a bank branch level, the requirement is very much similar to the corporate law, to the Companies Act requirement, wherein the risk control metrics and SOPs are being developed by the head office with the consultations of central statutory auditors, and its branch level implementation is what is ensured from the branch auditors. So all the branches which are being covered for branch audit may not be covered for IFC reporting also. So whenever you got the appointment letter, you have to confirm whether you are required to make the IFC reporting or not. So design testing, branch auditors has no role in that. Wherever they have a suggestion, they can make a comment in the LFAR. But design testing is restricted to head office team and the central audit team. And per se, a complete study material is being forwarded to the branch auditor for the sample testing and their report thereon. These are few of the areas wherein the IFC testing at a branch level is being done. The recording of loan features into the CBS. So we have seen cases wherein the rate of interest on the sanction letter is X% and what is being fed into the system is Y%. So there is a control laid down by the organization, by the bank, that somebody should be the maker of this entry and somebody should be the checker of this entry. So once you find a deviation, there is a question to the IFC mechanism also. So you can incorporate that in your IFC reporting also. So bank reconciliation, the mechanism may say that it has to be reconciled on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis, but whether these are actually being done or not, maybe for inter-office reconciliation, for fixed asset, physical verification, expenses being charged to fixed asset or vice versa. So again, for a voucher testing, for a voucher, for passing a voucher also, there is somebody, a maker in the branch, and there is somebody checker in the branch. So once you find a deviation, it gives a equivalent concern for the IFC mechanism at the branch level also. So you can incorporate that in your IFC. These IFC findings may or may not find a place in your main audit report, but once you find a control gap, it should definitely make a place in your IFC reporting. So ICI also came up with a technical guide on this IFC reporting. And just a second. So this technical guide was brought in by in March 2021, wherein all these things were mentioned, that what all needs to be tested at a branch level and what all needs to be tested at a controlling office level, be it be zonal office or be it be at a head office. So another report which is to be issued along with that is a long form audit report. The format of long form audit report was also revised in 2020. Earlier, it was continuing for the last 20 plus years, and in year 2020, the same has been amended to a new format. Now we are into that fourth year. Now it is no longer a new format, but this is structured like this, that we have to report on the asset, we have to report on the liabilities. This LFAR is something over and above your statutory audit report and IFC report. It is more of a internal control report only, wherein those observations which might not be finding a place in the main audit report, you can always incorporate them into the relevant section of long form audit report. Like if we talk about advances, there are so many observations each of the branch auditors have, may not be technically qualified into the NPA criteria of RBI norms, but these weaknesses you want to bring to the notice of your maybe bank's higher management or your central audit team. So LFAR is the best place for that. Similarly, there is a RBI prescribed questionnaire for other assets also, and for cash and bank balances also, for deposits also. There are P&L items in the branch financials. So again, LFAR has laid down a questionnaire for each of these components, which needs to be addressed specifically by the branch auditors. So let me tell you that RBI SSM we have been discussing, or RBI SSM has been discussing with the central audit team, that what is the criteria you are opting for auditing a particular branch, maybe sample selection or maybe areas other than advances. what are your key coverages of other assets, and contingent liabilities also, the items of the P&L also. So same way, the expectation is that our file should be having a proper control mechanism, that how have we attended to and how have we responded to these questionnaires. Some of the key highlights of this new LFAR, that large advances above 10 crore or above 10% of the advances, outstanding advances. And that 10% includes fund-based as well as non-fund-based. These are to be commented in specific. Maybe you are not having any adverse comment to make, but you have to specifically report on that what is the key features of that particular account. So these are amongst your mandatory samples. Amongst your other sample also, you have to define that what criteria have you taken. Is there any industry specific or is there any branch specific population which you have covered, so that within your sample size, it should be true representative of the entire population of the branch. Talking about systems at the branch, that whether there are automated automatic highlight of SMA accounts only, uh, applicable interest rate correctly fed, correct credit rating. Credit rating has also a key role in that CRAR computation also. Any frequent renewal or rollover happening, DP not computed properly. So instances have been noticed that where DP is apparently being overcasted. There is a CARO requirement also for the last 2 years, wherein statutory auditor of a corporate entity is required to report that whether the statements which are being submitted to the bank on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whether these are in alignment with their books of accounts or not. So you all must have experienced that information furnished to bank for this quarterly MIS is far beyond their actual books of accounts. So in practical sense, we call it as a DP normalization. So every year, March, we have a audited number which are much more confident to be relied upon. So what is happening between 2 March can be normalized, that what all are the debtor creditor level at each March end, and what all are the level which are happening in between the years. So again, there is guidelines to KYC compliances also, that anti-money laundering also. There is a specific question here. There is a guidance of the institute on that new LFR also. You can refer to that also. So again, the possible answers have also been captured in that ICI guidance note, and you can fill in your LFR accordingly. So there have been recent highlights by the RBI in their recent meetings, that LFR should be adequately answered. A yes or no or a one-word answer is not expected by them, and you can write an elaborative answer, whatever you have actually observed on the ground. So that's all from my side.
खन्ना सर,
Yes, sir.
खन्ना सर, आपके कोई कमेंट हो ओवरऑल बिफोर नेहा टेक द फाइनल क्वेश्चन आंसर्स?
I'll try and be as brief as possible. You see,
No, no, sir, you take your time now. What is there?
let me put it this way. So far as the long form audit report is concerned, I would like to draw the attention of the participants to the audit program, section D.L, which tabulates the questionnaires and the responses thereto at length. So it'll be very easy for them to complete the LFAR based on the work that they've done. But let me be very clear on one matter. The mistake which the auditors make is this. At the instance of the branch management, they try and put in the qualifications which are covered by the statutory responsibilities into the LFAR, which is not correct. The right thing is they should consider the qualifications which are the subject matter of their statutory responsibilities into the main report and elaborate that into the long form audit report. In other words, LFAR is not a substitute for the main report. We must understand LFAR is to elaborate the qualifications in the main or short report and give the recommendations as to the system and compliance thereof in the long form audit report. And if they give any qualifications in the LFAR, they must bring out that qualification in the main report. That means the source of this information is the main report and not the LFAR. If you, I might venture to add, and this is my own personal view, I think the institute, while drafting the dishing out the guidance note on audit of banks, has taken LFAR as the base, which I think is not appropriate. The real thing is, what should the auditor do in the main audit? And arising from that, if there are any matters to be considered in the LFAR, that needs to be done. One issue which must confront every auditor is that of the reporting on the ATM balances. Let me tell you, the ATMs which are attached to the branches, there are scrolls available from the ATM, and they must ask for the scrolls for the 31st of March. The 31st of March scroll will never be equal to the book balance as per the books of the branch, and they must report it. What is the difference? The difference can be twofold. One is that the figure of the ATM, it will always be a round figure equal to the denomination of the least size of the currency notes that are stuffed into it. For example, if you have stuffed 500 rupee notes, or then your denomination is 500 as the least, then the balance of the ATM has to be in a round figure of 500. If it is 100 rupee notes or 200 rupee notes, it will correspond to the least of the denominations in a round figure. There never will be any pesas. Now, if you look into the book balances of the ATMs of the branch concerned, you will find there are rupees and pesas also. The figures are odd. So you should question the branch as to why are there odd figures. Obviously, there are wrong entries passed by them in the books of accounts, which show an ATM balance which is a very odd figure. Okay. The real reason, I can tell you the real reason. One is there are mistakes. If you rectify those mistakes, the ATM balances per books will be in rounded figures. And what happens is that the books of the bank and branch are closed at a certain time at the end of the year. So the time of closing may be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 3 o'clock, or whatever the branch is. Thereafter, the ATMs are still operated. The ATMs are still operated by various people on behalf of the, on account of a card that belongs to the bank, or any other bank card can also be used. So the withdrawals made after the closing time of the bank branch, after it has closed the account, that will be the figure of difference. So people must understand why the difference arises, but it will never be an odd figure. Insofar as the bank balances are concerned, you see, you are required to look into the reconciliation statements. Now, what is the method of getting the reconciliations? We find that the branch having a bank account, say PNB has a bank account with SBI. So PNB manager will issue a letter to SBI branch or SBI that as per our books, the balance is so much. Please put your signature and endorse that this figure is correct. So that fellow doesn't check up from his books. He puts a stamp and sends it back, and you show it to the auditors. And what are you getting? A certificate signed by your own manager for the balance as per your branch. Now, similarly, a certificate comes from State Bank of India. The figures are different. What you need is a balance confirmation certificate from the other bank pertaining to my balance in their books. You understand, the manner of issuance of certificates is very, very critical and important. Okay. Now, I would also talk of Another matter, you see, the whole system of taking a loan starts with an application for a loan, goes into the first step, the appraisal, then comes the sanction, then documentation, disbursement, and thereafter the operations, which are subject matter of supervision and monitoring by the banks. The most critical part of the whole game is the appraisals. Now, the appraisal systems are responsible for the loan being good or bad. If it's a poorly done appraisal, you might have a quick mortality. Within 6 months of the appraisal or 12 months, the account will go bad. That is why a question is also there as to whether there are quick mortalities in the account. And if so, what has happened? And appraisals are really the biggest culprit for the banks. You see, there's an inverse mathematical relationship between the time it takes to appraise a loan and the time for recovery of that loan. Am I clear on that? The shorter time that you take for appraisal, the longer time you take for recovery, because you haven't applied your mind. Secondly, these appraisals come in for a review at the end of the year. Every 12 months, the bank is supposed to prepare what is called a review report. Now, what the banks resort to is a short review and tell you that this is technically we have reviewed as per the RBI. The RBI wants you to review the accounts when it is due at the end of the 12-month period. You are allowed a relaxation of 2 quarters, but that does not mean the review for those 2 quarters will prolong the next review. In 24 months, there have to be 2 reviews. You cannot say in 36 months we will have 2 reviews. And this is one of the reasons of default for the account becoming NPA. You understand, NPA arises on account of 4 factors. Okay, this is what the auditors must broadly understand. Firstly, there are monetary defaults. That means in servicing of a debt not in accordance with the sanction terms and not compliance of those terms in terms of repayments of the principal or payment of the interest. Secondly, you have non-monetary defaults. What are these non-monetary defaults? They arise on account of non-review or short review, as I was explaining just now. Stock statements not received as required on time. The third factor is the erosion in the value of security. Okay, that is another reason. And the fourth one is frauds. So all these 4 factors are built into the quality of the loan. And what is classification? You see, I do not know whether seminars, whether these have been discussed earlier or not, but these, the account, this is an internal classification into standard and non-performing, which comprises of substandard, doubtful, or loss. Okay, so a standard account we all know, but the NPAs, you have to apply your mind as per the IRAC norms to all these factors. Okay. This is one thing I want to tell you. And I always joke at seminars that every morning that you go and check up the advance, you must have a dosa. You know, I remember the dish, and people ask me why. A dosa is important for purpose of verification of advances. It's not that you've consumed a dosa and the advances are checked. No. DOSA stands for documentation, operation of the account, documentation, operation of the account, the security and guarantee aspects, and the account, the purity of the account itself. You can call it soda in the north, dosa in the south, doesn't matter. So long as you've carried these in capsule form, that if you have checked these aspects of an advance, you are fairly certain and sure that your classification, as given by the management, is right. Because what it is the management's responsibility to classify. And the auditor may disagree with it based on his own element of judgment and application of those norms. Now, in agricultural loans, the mistakes that generally the auditors make is this. You see, there are concessional loans where there's interest subvention, for instance. Okay, those loans are restricted to 3 lakhs per farmer, and they cannot be beyond 3 lakhs. There is a concessional rate, and the bank receives a subsidy or a compensation from the government for the loss of interest. Okay, now you have the same customer, because there's only one customer for the bank having one customer number, and he may be asking for 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, 10 lakhs of a loan, of which he wants to take advantage of the interest subvention. So they will split his loan into a 3 lakh figure in one account and 7 lakhs in another account. But how can the account number change? Now, when the account number is not changed, in some of the banks like Bank of India, they give it an account number, say 5800A and 5800B. Okay, the account number remains the same, but it's split into A and B. The issue is, how is this concessional loan, which is supposed to be repaid over a period of time as stipulated, how does it work? When you are receiving money, to which account will you credit? Will you credit to 3 lakhs, or will you credit to the 7 lakhs? Because there's an interest differential. Bank doesn't lose any money. So and then what happens really? The security aspect. This is what is more important to me. The security given by the customer is applied equally to the 3 lakhs and equally to the 7 lakhs. So a 1 crore of security for a 10 lakh loan, which is split into two, becomes 2 crores of security given for 3 lakh loan and given for the 7 lakh loan. So I think we should be very clear on this. And the other thing is that these loans are actually rolled over towards the year end by many of the banks. Instead of getting 3 lakhs cash, the money to as a return of the loan, they show an adjustment. Receive 3 lakhs same day and disburse 3 lakhs the same day. So these are book entries, okay, not matched by cash inward flows. So they should look into and review the cash book for this purpose. One more error that is generally noticed is the concept of interest accrued and due, and of interest accrued but not due. This is not really taken care of at the time of finalization of the account by the bank branches. Let me put it this way. Interest and accrued and due on deposits, for instance, is to be added to deposits. It is to be shown under that head is club. But interest accrued but not due should go to other liabilities on the deposits. So also for the advances. In advances, what many banks do is, well before the month is out, 3-4 days before that, they will debit the interest for the month of March. So what happens to the difference of those 4 or 5 days? That is not recorded. I think that needs to be looked into. On drawing power, there are several mistakes noticed by the branch auditors. And in the audit program, there's a methodology given in one of the sections that needs to be referred into. Selection of advances is an important aspect. And there is a separate section at 2 places in the audit program. You must write to the bank and get the advances covered by those, because 90% of your problems with regard to selection of accounts will be done. Frequent upgradations of accounts. Okay, please see that the RBI wants all the default to be over and completed and remedied, okay, before you upgrade the account. You cannot partially improve, recoup the money, or partially remedy a default and upgrade the account. So that's very, very important. The order of appropriation in accounts which are NPAs is very, very critical. While the RBI says follow a consistent method of accounting with regard to appropriation in such cases where there are no instructions of the borrower, the correct order of appropriation is charges, unapplied interest, applied interest, and then the principal. That should be the order, because according to AS 13, what have you done? You have not recorded the charges and interest on the accounts. You had already applied some interest on accounts which were standard and became NPAs later. So that interest suspense account, which is opened for that, has to not to take precedence over the unapplied interest, which you contractually record in the other account. But many of the banks do not have interest suspense. They have only unapplied interest, and that is it. I think there is a lot more that can be said to the very detailed and finer points, but I think broadly they have been covered by Mr. Vasudeva and Anuj. And of the one last thing that I would like to mention is this, that the difficulties in accounts or problematic accounts also can be viewed. Of course, the starting point is non-servicing of the account as per the terms and conditions. But then if there are statutory obligations which are unpaid in a particular case, there are statutory defaults by the customer or the borrower. I think that is very, very important. Frequent borrowings is another indicator. He's borrowing from you all the time. That means either your appraisal is not okay or something else is wrong. So therefore, that needs to be looked into. I'll sum up by saying that when you talk of RBI circulars, these take the shape of either directives or guidelines. Both of them are followed by the banks, but directives need not be ignored. The directives are far more stringent as compared to the guidelines, because guidelines are persuasive and directives are not. So I suppose I should stop here, because otherwise the subject itself is vast and one can cover a lot of things. But my suggestion is, if there's anybody who gets stuck with the audit anywhere, please inform them of your participants or others to whom you pass on the program, in case they need me for any clarification, any resolution of any issues, or any doubts they have with the bank, or they have a problem in reporting some matter on which they are convinced, you can pass on my mobile number and my email address. So thank you very much for allowing me to be.
सर आप दे दो मोबाइल नंबर, नोट कर लेंगे जितने भी हैं.
9810548858. But I'll prefer if somebody said
रिपीट कर दो सर.
9810548858.
संजय सर का भी नोट कर लें.
My request would be that they should send me a short message, because an unknown number normally one would avoid taking. Okay, because that's
Alternatively, they can give you a WhatsApp for their introduction and then call, so that you know that this number is.
And my email in any case is safer. They can send it to me at mmkhanna@yahoo.com.
Sanjay ji, my details are also there on the screen.
Yes, I have already said, sir.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Otherwise, my detail is on ICI side, so I am available otherwise also.
You can also
Like to add, sir.
ask the participants.
संजय जी आपको तो भेजनी भी पड़ेगी 4-4 बार, इलेक्शन में वोटें नहीं लेनी है.
You can, actually get these at your own email address also, and put a bunch of questions together and send it. You'll get an answer.
Sure, sir.
तो फिर वॉइस ऑफ सीए की मेल आईडी पे भेज दो ना, वो शेयर कर दो संजय जी.
हाँ, आप अपने पर मंगा लीजिए.
एक ही बात है सर, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. मेंबर्स की क्वेरी एज फास्ट एज पॉसिबल हो जानी चाहिए. All that is because always there is a pressure.
That's all. Every year it happens, and every year we get a lot of questions and we respond to those.
अश्विनी जी वोटा ते मंग लो.
वोटा सर मंग लिया, मैं ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ वोटा मंग रहे हैं. मेरी सभी से रिक्वेस्ट है कि संजय भाई, सबको मैंने जैसे इनिशियल में भी बताया कि हमारे सेंट्रल काउंसिल के लिए खड़े हो रहे हैं, मतलब खड़े नहीं हो रहे, रादर मतलब रिन्यूअल है, एफडीआर रिन्यूअल है इनकी. तो वो आपने ध्यान रखना है कि कहीं एफडीआर मतलब कहते हैं वो मैच्योर ना हो जाए पहले ही रिन्यूअल से। तो इनको ज्यादा से ज्यादा नंबरों से हमने जिताना है। तो मतलब आपने जितने भी आपने आपके फ्रेंड्स हैं और हैं वो सब आप उनको बोलते रहें कि अभी से हमने शुरू होना है संजय अग्रवाल जी के लिए। और वॉइस ऑफ सीए हमेशा ही आपकी सेवा में तत्पर रही है, नॉट ओनली फ्रॉम द कोविड टाइम्स। वी वर दी फर्स्ट वन जिन्होंने जूम के ऊपर ये स्टार्ट किए थे वेबिनार ड्यूरिंग कोविड। इधर इट मे बी एट द वॉइस ऑफ सीए और एट ब्रांच लेवल। एंड हम जितने भी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स हैं उसके ऊपर हमेशा ही मेंबर्स के सबसे पहले वेबिनार लेके आते हैं। चाहे 43 BH के ऊपर गिरीश ऊजा जी का हो, वासुदेवा जी का, देन कुंतल पी शाह जी का सिस्टम ऑडिट के ऊपर। आगे भी हमारे प्रोग्राम आफ्टर बैंक ऑडिट्स 20 तारीख तक तो मैं नहीं कोई अनाउंस करूंगा क्योंकि 20 तारीख तक सभी बैंक ऑडिट में बिजी होंगे। उसके बाद हम जीएसटी के ऊपर, देन इस बार हम होप करते हैं कि 5 जुलाई को निर्मला सीतारमण जी, मोदी जी जैसे कह रहे हैं कि 400 के पार, तो वो बजट पेश करेंगी। तो होपफुली 5 जुलाई को बजट आएगा तो उस बजट के ऊपर गिरीश ऊजा जी का फर्स्ट वेबिनार वो हम करेंगे। पहले तो गिरीश ऊजा जी का, और उसके बाद हम सभी ब्रांचेस में भी अकॉर्डिंगली गिरीश ऊजा जी का टाइम लेके फिजिकल प्रोग्राम भी करेंगे क्योंकि उस समय दिन बड़े होंगे। तो गिरीश जी के एक दिन में 4-4 प्रोग्राम हम रखेंगे नियर बाई ब्रांचेस में ताकि वो एक ही रूट में कवर हो सके। तो संजय जी का हमने ध्यान रखना है बहुत ज्यादा क्योंकि इस बार हमारे रीजन से ही बीपी है। तो वाइस प्रेसिडेंट को लोगों का अट्रैक्शन रहता, तो इस चक्कर में ये ना हो कि बच्चा रुल जाए। तो संजय जी का भी ध्यान रखना है कि नंदा जी ने तो निकलना ही है तो ये भी ना कहीं फंस जाए। तो इस वजह से ये नहीं सोचना भी ये जीते हुए हैं। कोई भी कैंडिडेट कभी भी जीता नहीं हुआ जब तक उसका रिजल्ट डिक्लेयर नहीं होता। तो इसलिए हमने इस बार ज्यादा ख्याल रखना पड़ेगा। तो मैं वासुदेवा जी का, MM खन्ना जी का और अनुज ढींगरा जी का स्पेशल थैंक्स करता हूं कि उन्होंने इतना टाइम निकाला। हालांकि हमने भी 1.5 घंटा अनाउंस किया था कि आई वॉज सर्टन की 1.5 घंटे में प्रोग्राम हो जाएगा, लेकिन मेंबर्स की जो संख्या है टिल लास्ट वो बनी रही क्योंकि उनका इंटरेस्ट था इस बार बैंक ऑडिट में। क्योंकि इफेक्टिव बैंक ऑडिट अगर हम करेंगे तभी आगे जाके हमारे ये कंटिन्यू होंगे। इंस्टीट्यूट भी इसमें एफर्ट कर रही है कि उन्होंने जो बैंक वाले कहते थे पहले तो हमारी तरले मिलते निकाल के NPA छुड़वा लिए, जहां कोई ट्रांजेक्शन छुड़वा ली तो वो कहीं भी अकाउंट फॉर नहीं होती थी। अभी इंस्टीट्यूट ने अपने UDIN में डाटा कैप्चर करना शुरू कर दिया कि आपने कितना MOC दिया है। तो इंस्टीट्यूट भी बेटर रिप्रेजेंट कर सकती है कि हमारे मेंबर्स ने क्या काम किया है। तो इन चीजों का ध्यान रखें कि आप अपना इफेक्टिव ऑडिट कर पाए। इसके लिए वॉइस ऑफ सीए से हमने प्रयास किया है आपको जो हमारे मतलब बैंक ऑडिट गुरुज हैं उनके साथ आपका रूबरू कराया है ताकि आप इफेक्टिव बैंक ऑडिट कर सकें। तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं जो हमारी फैकल्टीज हैं उनका तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूं वॉइस ऑफ सीए और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एसोसिएशन की तरफ से कि आप लोगों ने हमारे साथ जुड़ा और हमारे स्पीकर्स ने इतना टाइम हमें दिया। और रिगार्डिंग 148A मैंने रिसेंट अभी चीफ कमिश्नर को और PMO को एक लेटर भेजा है कि 148A अनवारंटेड आ रहे हैं जिन केसेस में सिक्योरिटी हो चुकी है उनमें भी। तो ऐसे इनिशिएटिव आगे भी हम लेते रहेंगे। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
And
ओवर टू नेहा फॉर द कंक्लूजन।
Ashwin ji, on a personal note, please go through your surgery and God bless you. And
थैंक यू सर।
may you
Thank
reduce
you.
by a few stones.
थैंक यू सर।
Chalo ji, all the best.
बस कुछ नहीं सर. Thank you everybody. Thank you participants for joining us today. And we'll now officially close the session. Head office, you can log off.